Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready?
All right, welcome back to the show. Today we have a very special guest. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Hannah. I'm a bodybuilder, IFBB pro slash published model, I guess.
So, how are you
uh,
today?
I'm good. I'm sorry I'm late. I just got done training. The gym kind of ran long, and then I'm not very computer savvy, so I was having some trouble setting up.
That's okay. That's okay. So, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into bodybuilding and the fitness industry.
Well, so I started like I've always been athletic my whole life. And the short version is I was doing triathlons with my dad or my stepdad. Um, and I was always interested in athletic things. I kind of gravitated towards that kind of stuff. Um, and um, I was working out in a gym. Um, and I would see people like lifting weights and stuff, but since I was training for triathlons, it was always cardio, right? So I would do running, swimming, that kind of thing. And then one day I worked at a grocery store at this point. I was 16 years old. Um, I saw a Muscle and Fitness magazine, a magazine that's no longer around, and there was a female bodybuilder on it, and I thought she looked so cool. Um, and I immediately fell in love. And since I was already training at a gym, I started venturing off into the weights, thinking that, you know, one day I'm gonna maybe look like that. I wanted to look like that. And then I got really lucky because there was a trainer there that saw me that saw me like trying to lift weights, and I was doing it very badly. And he came up to me and he was like, "Hey, why don't I like show you some things?" And he started training me for free. Um, so yeah, that's kind of how it started. Literally just saw a magazine and thought it looked so cool.
What was the transition like to go from doing nothing but cardio to trying to learn how to lift the correct way and build body mass?
Um, Completely different, but I actually took to the weights more naturally than cardio because I've never like I started out doing triathlons, and I actually did gymnastics for a while. I rode horses, so I was like always athletic. Um, but I wasn't very good at it. Like I put so much into running, like I was trying to bring up my running time. Um, I was pretty good at swimming, but like I'm still to this day I'm slow, right? Like I'm not a fast runner. Like I don't have much endurance. And I remember like my stepdad, he was trying to be really nice about it. And he was like, "Hey, you're good at a lot of things and you're athletic, but running is not your sport." Um and so like I just was really drawn to um anything athletic. And then once I found weights, it was like a natural, like I was naturally better at that than running. I'd been running for years and still wasn't very good at it. And then once I started properly weight training, I got really good at it. So it's like like for me it came more naturally than anything else.
What was the nutrition change like? Because I've heard from different bodybuilders that you've got to consume multiple meals throughout the day, and some of it's got to be protein, or a lot of it's got to be protein.
So I didn't start taking my nutrition seriously until way later. Um, it's kind of embarrassing to say because that's such a big part of it. Um, and when I first started getting into weight training, I didn't realize there was this whole world of bodybuilding because I was kind of sheltered. Um, I didn't watch a lot of TV. My mom didn't let us watch like we had a limit on TV. We were allowed to watch 30 minutes a day and that was it. Um, and I didn't get a phone until like other than a flip phone, I didn't get an actual like phone that you could log on the internet until I was like almost 20 years old. Um, So I was very sheltered and I didn't know this whole industry existed. So as far as like what I didn't my nutrition did not train at all when I first started weight training. Didn't train at all because I didn't know. Um, the guy that I was training with, the trainer that kind of took me under his wing, he did emphasize, he was like, okay, try to eat protein, but that's kind of like all he said. And to me, like back then, like a Snickers bar was protein. You know, like M&M's was peanut M&M's was protein to me. But that's not protein, but um, so actually, how I got into the nutrition part of it was it wasn't until I was almost 20 that somebody at the gym, so by this time I was 19, 20-ish, I was a personal trainer, and so I was training people at the gym, and people started to get to know me, and one of my friends came up to me, he was like, hey, you put so much into working out, why don't you go see somebody for nutrition and kind of complete the whole thing? Because he knew me, he knew that I'd like, I would wake up and my breakfast would be M&Ms, you know. So, and by that time, people would come up to me and ask me if I compete because I looked like, I had cap shoulders and I kind of looked like I always looked athletic. And so I kind of looked like I competed. And people would come up to me and ask me, do you compete? And I'm like, no. Like, I didn't know what they were talking about. Um, and so my friend who approached me was like, hey, go see this guy. I've been seeing him for years. Just go talk to him about nutrition. He'll make it super easy for you. And so I did. Um, and I made a nutrition appointment with him. And I go in and he saw my shoulders. He was like, are you here for contest prep? And I said, no, I'm here for nutrition. And he goes, you got to compete. And I was like, people keep asking me if I compete. I don't know what this is. Like, tell me what this is. So he pulled up pictures of, like, back then it was figure competitors because that's what I started out in. And he's showing me these pictures of these really tan, really lean girls, and the suits looked so weird to me because they come up so high, and all of it just looked super weird. But it was a form of bodybuilding, so I was immediately interested, you know. And so he actually talked me into, first it went from, I just need to stop eating M&Ms for breakfast to um, to actually in a prep. So he prepped me. I think it was like 16 weeks, and I got on stage. The first time I ever went to a show, it was the one I was in, and I got second place out of like 30 girls.
Wow.
Yeah, and so that's kind of how it started. But yeah, you're right. Protein. So everyone's a little bit different, and some people go by macros. Some people, but it is very typical for us to eat like 6 times a day, right? Chicken and rice 6 times a day. That's very typical.
Yeah, and I've heard that from a lot of people that when you're getting ready to compete, you do that, and that over a period of time, it kind of gets boring to a degree as far as the eating habits go. But the end result, from the people I've talked to, and I would imagine it'd be the same for you, it makes you feel good to have to go through that process to end up where you end up.
Yeah. And honestly, once you start getting once you start getting really lean when you start a prep, everything tastes good. And so it is boring initially, like if you eat the same thing every day. And I think people have gotten better in the industry about like, making sure stuff tastes good and kind of not getting bored with it. But once you're like in prep and you're like in the woods in it, chicken and rice tastes really good. Because you're so hungry, everything tastes really good.
And I could only imagine what that's like to be training and burning all those calories out as almost as fast as you can put them in.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and I couldn't imagine what that would be like. But it's one of those things where if it helps reach that end goal, then it's like anything else. You put in the work.
Yeah.
So what
Yeah.
was
And
your what was your first competition like? As far as Were you nervous going into it or anything like that?
I was because I didn't know what to expect. Um, and like I said, it was the first show I'd ever been to, was the one that I was in. So I didn't really know what like the protocols were. My coaches did, tell me, but it was different like being there. Um, but it was really fun and I got hooked immediately. I did really well and I didn't even realize how well I did until one of the judges went up to my coach and was asking about me. And so I guess I got noticed some, and my coach, my posing coach at the time, she came up to me. She was like, "Yeah, the judges were noticing you, and they said you would have won if your posing was better." I didn't have a lot of time to train for this because I got thrown into it. Um, and so my posing was very bad, and they were like, "Yeah, you would have if your posing was a little bit better, you would have got first place." And so I was like, "Wow." Like it was a sport that I actually excelled at instead of having to um like work really hard and not really get rewarded like I did with triathlons. Even though I was
Hmm.
okay, like I won a couple events that were in my age division, but that was also when I was like 15. But it always felt like I was fighting against something when I was doing endurance training, whereas weight training it felt very much like I was going with the current, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and do you feel as though it's like as far as the nutrition aspect and the training that you do for bodybuilding and then the fitness side of that to be a little bit more structured?
Yeah, yeah, because bodybuilding is very structured. It's very, very structured. Not in any other sport, like with bodybuilding, you have to be dialed in with your training and you have to be dialed in with your nutrition. When I was doing endurance stuff, I like I said, I wasn't really taught about nutrition. Like even when I was doing triathlons actively, no one really stressed nutrition. I mean, granted, I didn't have like a professional coach or anything like that in triathlons. It was just kind of like my stepdad and I just having fun with it. Um, but yeah, nutrition wasn't stressed at all.
So, as far as transitioning from training to be a bodybuilder and an IFBB pro, how did you get into the modeling side of things?
That was actually during a show. It was back in I want to say 29 2018, maybe before that. Um, So a lot of it's really common for competitors to book photo shoots during like either right before or right after a show because you want to remember what kind of shape we worked so hard to get into that shape, right? And you want to remember it. Um and I was at USA's, I believe, in Vegas. Um and my then posing coach at the time booked a photo shoot for me with Sean Nelson because he wanted to put a picture of me on his wall because he was sponsoring me a little bit. So he does massage therapy. He also helped me pose, and he was bugging me for a while about wanting to put a picture on his wall, a signed picture, because he does that with all of his athletes. Um, and so I shot with Sean Nelson, he's a pretty big name in the fitness industry. Um, and one of the pictures that we took like went viral, and then I just started having a bunch of photographers contacting me, and I kind of just went with it. Like I kind of just fell into it, honestly. Like I had so many photographers contacting me off that one shoot and they started asking me like, "What are your rates?" And I was like, "Oh, I thought I was supposed to pay you guys," because I guess they thought I was doing it professionally. Because his photos look so good. Like if you see him, you're like, "Oh, yeah, those." Um, But so I started getting a ton of interest with photographers and I really liked it. Like I used to hate getting my picture taken. I used to really hate it. But then after a couple photo shoots, it was so much fun. Like I loved the different styles. I loved working with different photographers and meeting people in that industry has been really great.
Do you enjoy the process that goes into the modeling aspect of things?
I do. I really do. I Bodybuilding's always going to be first for me, but modeling is a very, very close second. Um, so like as far as like finding, I have like a full Pinterest board of like things that I want to do. And then I have different ones with like different photographers that they want to do. I really love I love having different styles, you know?
Right. Yeah, and I've seen some of the pictures you've done on your Instagram, and they are professional looking, in which I
And
would imagine those are. And it just seems like you're in your natural element when doing that.
I am like I feel very comfortable with it now. It wasn't always like that, but um and also it helps that I work with some amazing photographers. Like I've not had I've maybe had one bad experience ever since I've been doing this. Everyone else like has just been amazing.
Well, and that's good. I mean, I guess no matter what industry you're in, you have a bad experience every so often, but
Yeah.
it's good that it didn't leave a sour taste in your mouth. That you got to the point where you didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
Sounds like you enjoy both processes when it comes down to the bodybuilding side of things and then the modeling side of things as well.
Yeah. And I also really love that because I work with different photographers, they all like different things. So some of them just want me in contest shape, right, when I'm in prep, when I'm lean. And some of them just want me in off season and then some of them are like let's do both. So I then that's also helped with like my the way all bodybuilders have a level of body dysmorphia, right? So I always have um and so that really helps, you know, because I don't feel like I have to hide when I'm in off season and I'm not super lean because there's someone out there that's going to like that look, you know.
Yeah, and I would imagine, like you just said, in lack of better terms, it boosts your confidence level to be able to see yourself in a different way than you see yourself at certain points.
Yeah.
You're able to see yourself how other people see you.
Yeah. And that's
And
a
see,
bit.
that's sorry, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say like that's a pretty big thing with people that compete is um they get really addicted to like being lean and looking a certain way and looking like perfect, right? Um to the point where they almost don't want to even be seen when they're not shredded. And I started becoming that way when I first started competing. It was really hard because I also had a history of eating disorders. So being that lean and then having to let go of that and like see my abs and stuff disappear, I wanted to cover up. There was a couple seasons where I like did not want anyone to see me if I wasn't shredded. Um, and doing photography and stuff like that has really helped me get over that.
And that's awesome to hear because you're right. I everybody I've talked to says that they kind of not so much hate the way they look, but when they're not training, it's kind of they feel as though they're taking a step back, even though when they go to train again, it's almost instantly there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
exactly.
can see that because you put in all that hard work, and then all of a sudden, if you take whatever the break is, 3 6 months, whatever it is, and then you just see the little bits of change that other people on the outside don't really notice.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what is next for you? What do you have coming up?
So I just got my pro card, which for people that don't know, that means like you get into the pro league. So before I was doing state shows and national shows to try to get a pro card, and then once you get your pro card, you're in the pro league, which is a whole other like ball game. So I'm gonna be up. So the next time I compete, I will be competing against other pros. Um, so the plan right now is to take a long off season, and I've been in off season since September. That's when I got my pro card. Um, and try to put on as much muscle as I can before doing my pro debut. Because it's a whole different caliber of athletes on the pro level. So I have some size to put on. Um, I don't think I'm ever going to be like a mass monster. I don't think that that's in the cards for me. But I am hoping with the way um, like I'm built, my structure is gonna help push me further than just pure size.
Yeah, and congratulations on the pro card. I know from talking to other bodybuilders that that's a huge thing to achieve.
Yeah, that's usually the goal for most people when they compete.
Now, as far as and see, I don't know the difference here, but as far as being in the minor, so to speak, before you get your pro card, what are the competitions like before and then after? I know you haven't been to one yet, but would that be considered stuff like Arnold Classics or anything like that?
Yeah, so the Arnold Classic, like the Tampa Pro, the New York Pro, those are some of the big ones. Um, and then so for people that don't know, the first step is to qualify at they call it a national qualifier. So that's usually they have them in almost every state. It's just like a state show where you have to win. I think it's top two, I believe, to qualify for nationals now. And then you do a national show, and depending on the national show, again, I believe it's top two. Some shows it's only the winner that gets a pro card. The one I did was North Americans. It was just the winner. Um, so yeah, you have to place uh first or second to qualify for a national show, and then to get a pro card at a national show.
And see, that's amazing because I would imagine during those competitions to try to get to that point that there's a ton of other people behind you trying to get there as well.
Yeah, I mean yeah, for everyone who competes, that's what they're trying to do. Um, for my category, like the biggest categories right now are wellness or bikini. I don't know which one's more more popular because they're both huge classes for women, and then men's classic physique is starting to get really really popular. I do bodybuilding. I did lightweight or middleweight bodybuilding. And so that class, like, there's not a whole lot of athletes in it. Um, it's probably one of the smallest ones that I do. Um, but the caliber of competition is still very high.
And I think it's great that, you've worked so hard to get to the level you are now that you're going to be moving to the next tier. And I just feel like based on what you've told me thus far that, you know, you're going to put in the work and everything's going to work out just fine.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely this has been a dream of mine since I can remember. So I will make sure I do everything in my power to, do as well as I can. My goal is to go to the Olympia one day. I don't know if I would I being realistic, I don't think I would ever win, but I want to like be on that stage.
And just to go, I mean, from what I've heard, that's one of the bigger stages to be on.
It's I want arguably the biggest in bodybuilding. It's like our Super Bowl.
And see, just to be there would be amazing, just looking from the outside in,
Yeah. Yeah, no,
you
I
know.
could die happy if I get on that stage.
So where can our followers find you on social media?
I have Instagram. That's probably the best one to follow me on for fitness stuff. Um, it's Hannah underscore Hussein 13.
Do you still train people on occasion?
Um, I have a couple clients that I have kept for like I've been training since I was 19. I've been personal training since I was 19. And I've had some clients that have been with me for like over 10 years. And
Wow.
it's only a handful. I used to do it full time. I've since stopped. I got a little burnt out of it. I don't know if I will ever go back to full time. But I will occasionally take on a client if I feel like I can genuinely help them.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking time out of your day to chat with me. I know we've been trying to work on getting you on the show for a little while, and
Yeah.
nothing's lined up until recently, which has been great.
Yeah, I was actually training for North Americans when he first contacted me, and I was just so tired during that prep that I was like, it, and it doesn't seem like, being on a podcast doesn't seem like it's, super taxing, but when you're like that close, everything is taxing. And waking up and walking, to the kitchen is taxing.
I can only imagine. Yeah. And I appreciate you doing it. It's been a real pleasure. And hopefully next time we talk, you can be on that top tier stage and we'll see how things work out.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. I hope you have a good rest of the afternoon.
You too.
All right. Bye bye.
Down, down.